Today we're talking about a girl who escapes being burned at the stake to save her brothers in Hans Christian Andersen's The Wild Swans. A story that definitely gets its ideas from The Six Swans by the Brothers Grimm, and a bunch of others I'll talk about eventually, but is its own special thing. In a faraway land, there's a king and queen who have 11 sons and one daughter, and their lives are amazing. They wrote with pencils of diamonds upon golden slates, and the girl had a picture book that costs half the country. The mom dies, the dad remarries a stepmother who doesn't like the children, and in fact, instead of giving them all the cakes and baked apples they used to get, she gives them sand in a teacup and tells them to imagine it's a special treat. She's also an evil witch, so she transforms the 11 brothers into swans and sends them off into the world. Now the daughter, our protagonist, Elisa, the queen just sends to live with some peasants in the woods. When she's 15, she comes home, and the queen is so mad that she's really beautiful that she wants to turn her into a swan too, but she doesn't at first because the dad wants to see her. So she tells her daughter to go to this bathing palace, and she takes these 3 toads. It says one, squat on her head when she bathes so she becomes as torpid as you, and the next one, squat on her face so she gets real ugly, and the third one, squat on her heart so she'll be tormented by evil desires. But Elisa is so good and so pure that when the frogs go in there and get on her, they transform into poppies, and her goodness melts their evil magic. So the queen just goes old school. It says that she covers her face with dirt and touses her hair and smears ointment on her, just making her ugly, and brings her before the king, and the king's like, ew, that's not my daughter, and they send her away. So Elisa goes to live by herself in the forest, and it is described as beautiful. She slept with her head on the soft moss. The fireflies glittered like a green fire in the grass. There was a delightful fragrance of green foliage, and the birds came near enough to perch on her shoulder. And then she happens upon this old woman. She asks, have you seen my brothers? And she says, no, but I saw 11 swans all wearing crowns. Maybe that was them. They're by the sea. So Elisa wanders until she gets to the beach, and then she sees these 11 swans with crowns. They land, the sun sets, and then they turn back into their human form, and they tell her this is a specific curse. They have to be swans during the day, but they turn back into men at night. They also can only come back here where she is from their native land once a year, and the rest of the time they have to live in this other country across the ocean. They're like, we have to go back tomorrow, but we can take you with us. So they do that by making a net out of willow bark and rushes. They start to fly away with her to this magical land, and it's beautiful and breathtaking, but then the sun's about to set, and if they turn into humans in the air, they'll just plummet to their death, and so they've got to get to this rock. It's written very suspensefully, but they do finally get there in time. They spend the night crouching together on this rock, and then the next day they're able to go to this land. So she settles into this cave that says has moss that looks so delicate it's like embroidery. So she prays and prays for a way to free her brothers, and then this fairy comes to her in a dream and tells her how. She has to use stinging nettles to make shirts for each of her 11 brothers. They will sting and blister her hands, and she can only get specific ones that grow on graveyards, which is a cool spooky detail. And she also cannot speak until she has finished this task. And if she does, her brothers will immediately die. She sets to work on this task, bearing the pain, not speaking. She makes a couple shirts, and then one day a hunting party comes by with the king of this new kingdom, and he's hot. And he's like, hey, how'd you come to be here? And she can't tell him. And he's like, well, I'm taking you with me then. And he takes her, and she's crying because she doesn't want to go because it's leaving her stuff. So he takes her to this palace, gives her beautiful clothes, a gorgeous place to live, but she's still crying until the king's like, oh yeah, I brought those shirts and those nettles you were working with. You seemed attached to those, so here you go. She's so happy and grateful that she presses the king's hand to her heart, kisses it. It's decided that they will be married, and she's happy about it, but the archbishop is not. They think she is weird because she's some mute girl from the woods and no one knows who she is, and maybe even a witch. He tells the king he's against it, but the king's like, I don't care, you're wrong. Well, one night she runs out of nettles, so she sneaks out to go and gather nettles from the graveyard. And there are vampires there. It says they're sitting in a circle around the gravestones with their skinny fingers. They clawed open the graves and began to eat. She just walks by them, says a prayer, gets her nettles, and goes. Well, the archbishop sees her and thinks that's weird. And so the next night he follows her again and tells the king. And the king's like, well, let me watch with you. So the third night they watch her go down again. And when they see her coming out of the graveyard, after also seeing the vampire vampires. They think she is either one of them or in consort with them, and yeah, she's gonna have to die. The king says, let the people judge her, and they condemn her to die by fire. She's like almost done with the shirts, and now she's like, I have to finish before I'm dead. And so she works and works and works all night. Well, her brothers have been looking for her ever since she was kind of just taken by the king, and they finally find out where she is. So as soon as night falls, the night before she's supposed to be executed, they go in their human form demanding to see the king and tell him the truth, but they won't let them see him. In the morning, Elisa is taken out to be burned, and the brothers are birds now and they can't do anything. They take her through in a cart, and she is just sewing and mumbling prayers. She's got 10 shirts done and she's working on the 11th. And the mob scoffs, look how the witch mumbles and makes those shirts. Take away her filthy sorcery, snatch it and tear it to bits. So they try to pull away the shirts, but then the swans fly in and make a ring around her and stop them. Our girl finally finishes the last shirt and throws them at her brothers, who transform into their regular selves. All except the last brother, the youngest one. She didn't get to finish his sleeve, so he's always just got a wing for the rest of his life. Now, she cried, I may speak. I am innocent. Now all the people bow down to her like she's a saint. Not sure why they think the sewing is witchy, but the transforming the brothers is saintly, and not also witchy, but they don't. And she just faints from exhaustion. Brothers step up and they're like, yes, she was innocent. Let us tell you the entire story. And they do. And as they do, the stake she was supposed to be burned at suddenly starts to sprout roses everywhere, which is cool. There's one white rose like a star shining at the top, and the king picks it, puts it on Elisa's breast, and she wakes up again. Then it says the church bells rang of their own accord, the air was filled with birds, and they went to the palace with a bridal procession unlike anything anyone had ever seen before. Now in the Brothers Grimm version, and a lot of these versions, it's an evil stepmother who is framing her for murdering her children in these stories, and that's why she's gonna be burned, and they often face a really terrible, gruesome punishment. Nothing really happens to the archbishop because he just, was misinterpreting things, and there's no murdered children in this one. They just think she's a witch because vampires. I'm going to be covering a lot of these different brother bird variants. They're all weird and wild in a bunch of different ways, but the cool thing about them is they do all involve this girl who saves her brothers. I mean, everything would have been lost if it isn't for her going through horrible pain and being tenacious and strong. Also, maybe watch Who You Were About to Burn as a Witch. Check out my book, A Reimagining of the 12 Dancing Princesses, called Dust Spells, and my podcast, Folk Tales and Fairy Lore. Link is in the bio.